Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Anna Donaghey. She is an alcohol mindset coach, a podcast host, as well as an author. And we'll be talking about her how to break free from the gray areas of drinking and stop outsourcing your happiness to your glass. Discover how to identify what you are truly thirsty for and create a life you don't want to escape from. Welcome to the show, Anna.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be here. Very nice to be here.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show, Anna. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk not about drinking, but about living it, rethinking about your drink, redesigning your life. We'll talk all about this, Anna, and learn a lot of things from you. But before that, let's learn a bit about your journey, your background, your story, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm in my mid-50s now. And about 6 years ago, I personally chose to give up drinking after many, many, many years as a very heavy drinker. Alcohol had been woven into my background for decades. My background being a sort of normal, high-functioning life on the outside. I worked in the advertising industry. There were client dinners, the big sort of after-work drinks, the Friday night, you deserve this kind of drinks. And, you know, I thought that alcohol was adding to my life until I suddenly realized it wasn't. I became very dependent on alcohol. I became addicted to alcohol. And my journey over the sort of couple of years before I quit was through me growing my self-awareness and understanding how and why that had happened. I wanted to sort of reverse out of the addiction rather than take on that label, if you like, take on that mantle and let it define me. So my story really is one of sobriety, yes, but I don't really talk about sobriety so much because what it really meant for me was learning to understand what I was really thirsty for underneath. Drinking had become my emotional management system, Ajay, and it was not working for me. It was slowly dimming my light and turning the volume down on everything that I wanted and putting a great distance between me and my hopes and my aspirations and my dreams. And it was exhausting. It was really beginning to take its toll on many, many aspects of my life. So I felt I needed to quit, but I wanted to quit and walk into a life where it was irrelevant, where alcohol was irrelevant, because I was creating everything else that intoxicated me, in more healthy and nourishing ways. So yeah, a sort of a personal story of addiction to sobriety, but one which was really about understanding the undercurrents to my drinking. And now I'm a coach, as you say. I call myself an alcohol mindset coach. It is very much about the mindset, understanding why we drink and reframing what it is that we're looking for. So I work now as a coach with people all over the world, one-to-one coaching, group coaching, in order to help them through their own personal journeys.
Absolutely, Anna. So a lot of people who drink, they will say, Anna, we are not either in the advertising line, we are not in any other social meeting, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it because that's what I want. And I take it in the way my body can adjust, and I'm happy about it. Why are you telling me to rethink about all these things, Anna? What would you like to tell a lot of these people, all sort of people in different parts of the world, also in India?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I'm definitely not here for the preaching. I have a really interesting take on alcohol, to be honest. I don't vilify it. I think the world is full of born-again non-drinkers who would suggest that, you know, drinking is the devil's work and all that sort of stuff. And I just don't buy into that. I think if you drink in a way that only makes you happy, then that's great, isn't it? You know, the goal here is happiness. The goal here isn't necessarily sobriety, it's happiness. But I think what happens all too often is it's when drinking becomes more than that. And when we take an honest look and sort of appreciate that maybe it is compromising aspects of life. Now, that might not be. So there has to be an element of sort of truthful inquiry. You know, are you doing what you want to do in life? Are you aligned to the values that you hold true? Are you the person who you want to be? Are your aspirations and ambitions, you know, brightly lit up rather, and are you moving in the right direction? And if so, fantastic. But if you can kind of look at your life and all aspects of it and consider that in some shape or form alcohol is compromising any aspect of it, then I would say have a rethink. Not you must quit, but have a rethink, because, you know, I would sort of say to people, you don't have to have a problem with a capital P, like I did personally. But if alcohol is compromising your life in any way, it's kind of a problem, because we've only got one life. And it would be fantastic if it could be the life that we want. And if something like alcohol is standing in the way of it, if it's that thing that's keeping what you want just out of reach, then yeah, a rethink. But obviously, if you're not unhappy with your drinking, if you believe that you're drinking in ways that only make you happy, then I'm not here to vilify that. It's not my message.
Absolutely. I get your point, but I have to ask from different various, kinds of people who either love it, who may not themselves drink, but they will think, to understand it better. So how do I know, Anna, that, this drinking of mine is standing in my way? Many people will say, I am only a social drinker. It helps me be a part of that group within, especially men, for many men and even women, that, it makes me gel better within my social circle, work circle. And, and then that leads to, becoming much more comfortable with those things. And then one fine day you find yourself addicted. One more understanding about that aspect, to know exactly when it is becoming a problem. How did you come to know it has become a problem? Because you were that was part of your life also for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was. Let's put my personal situation to one side, because I knew it was becoming a problem for me because it was really impacting my life. It was obvious, So I would say that because I was addicted, it was becoming quite clear in aspects of my life that I was in trouble with it. So that's not the case for the majority of drinkers, though, as you say. A lot of people, particularly in Western societies, not so much in other societies, but in our culture, in the UK and in Western cultures, drinking is very, very socially acceptable, and it's very, very accessible, and it's our kind of go-to for relaxation and stuff like that. And you're absolutely right. The majority of people will drink, and they still do, even though the statistics are saying that's coming down. The majority of adults still drink, and the majority of those adults will say that it adds to their sense of sociability, and it brings joy and it brings connection, which is fantastic. We need that in our lives, so that's good. I think what happens on a very regular basis, though, is we start giving alcohol more jobs to do because we like the way it makes us feel. It's a psychoactive drug, so it does change our brain chemistry and it makes us feel better. And that better can feel, I want to feel less sad, more happy, less anxious, more calm, less self-conscious, more confident, so we can start to use it in that way. And when we do that, when we start giving it more jobs to do, it starts to creep in, because that's when we start to use it not as a social prop or a social vehicle anymore, but more as a way of managing our emotions. And emotions are a part of everyday life. They come thick and fast. And at some stages in life, they come like a tsunami. And if our known dynamic and tool for managing those emotions is alcohol, then that's where we can start to find ourselves in trouble. Now, we may be a little bit like that sort of the analogy of the frog in the boiling water, whereby, if you stick a frog in a boiling pot of water, it goes, ouch, and it jumps out again. If you stick a frog in a pot of water, I'm not suggesting you do this, by the way, but if you stick a frog in a cold pan of water and slowly heat it, it just acclimatizes, it just settles for its surroundings. And that's what happens. That's what happens with our drinking. We don't notice the slow creep that it may be having, and we just adjust to using it in certain ways in our life. So to your original question, if I'm a normal drinker, how do I know when it's beginning to be a little bit unhealthy or it's ramping up? It's often that sort of small, almost imperceivable difference that you're not just drinking for social reasons anymore. You might be drinking at home on your own, which is not sociable at all. That's an entirely different type of drinking. You might be saying, I'm just going to have the one, but it's always 2 or 3. You might say, I'm going to have dry January off, or I'm going to take a month off, and you find that really hard. There's a tug of war often that goes on in our mind between I want to drink and I don't want to drink. I have a sense that this isn't healthy for me, yet I feel I want it. So it's these signs, RJ, which are sort of, they creep in. They're not necessarily loud. They don't necessarily come crashing into your life. But if you're drinking more this year than you did last year, or this month than you did 2 or 3 months ago, then it's just a case of being aware of it and looking at it. But certainly not doing what we all do, which is kind of go, well, I don't think it's that bad, because I can always spot someone. Who's drinking more than me, so I'm not that bad. Be honest, it's about honesty with ourselves and sort of self-awareness, really.
Absolutely, Anna. So let's understand things. What is it that you are trying to do on the ground now that you are full-fledged into this? You are a coach in this. You have a podcast about this, and you also have written a book around this. So tell us, what is it that you are doing on the ground? What is it that you want to achieve through your work?
I like to think that I'm on a mission to take everything that I've learned about human behavior, about my own personal experiences and journey, about alcohol, physiologically, biologically, psychologically, what it does, and just breathe awareness into behaviors that we take as default. I absolutely know from experience and coaching that we drink to change the way we feel, and yet we can design our lives to incorporate the things that make us feel better. No alcohol required, okay? So I'm about saying, let's live with a sense of intentionality, awareness of what it is you're looking for, of what you're thirsty for, and how and where to seek that out, rather than defaulting to drinking, which is a mechanism that we often bring into our lives when we are either coping with disappointment or stress or resentment or anger. So, I want, if I could say my mission was complete, it would be that people decide they either want to drink or they don't want to drink. That's not for me to say, but they do it with their eyes wide open, and they do it in ways that only make them happy. And that would mean that they have a really cool toolbox, a much bigger toolbox to manage the ups and downs of life. And that those ups and downs aren't actually as turbulent as they might feel now, because we're designing the life that we want and we're feeling nourished. Whatever it is we're thirsty for, we're quenching in different ways. That would be my ideal. I honestly believe that if we were all kind of honest about what we were looking for in life and driven to, motivated to go and get it, alcohol would lose its grip anyway. It's a coping mechanism at the end of the day. And my job would be to sort of try and say, let's make it small and irrelevant so that we have better tools.
Absolutely. Yeah, carry on, Anna. You were saying something more.
Well, I was just going to say, my coaching is one thing. Obviously, that's the sort of, people come to me if they kind of go, can you help me do that? And I go, yeah, of course I can help you do that. And we work and we do that. My podcast, which is called The Big Drink Rethink, is that sort of balanced perspective of alcohol. It doesn't say, it's not, I always say it's not a sobriety podcast. I talk about it as a, let's look at alcohol from all angles kind of podcast. Let's only drink in ways that make us happy kind of podcast. It's not about bashing people over the head and saying you mustn't drink. It's about saying just be aware of it. And if there's things that you want to change and things that you want to tweak, then here's different ways of looking at it. And I stuff loads of free tools onto my website in order that people don't have, the barrier of money in order to access coaching around alcohol. So that's all there. And then the book is a more personal inquiry again. It's about, it comes out in January. It is available for pre-order. I'll put a plug in, but it really does ask that question. What are you thirsty for? It's called What Are You Thirsty For? Rethinking Alcohol and the Life You Want. And it starts off with that assessment. Let's have an audit. Let's look at your life, the jobs you give it to do, alcohol to do, where you are, where you want to be, whether alcohol is in any way standing in between the two. And then, yes, it's got this toolbox. And I always sort of say it's not a how-to book. It's a what-if book. What if you had better tools? What if we listened to what we're really thirsty for instead of numbing these signals? So this, there's various aspects to what I do, as you're kind enough to mention them. But there's something for everybody in there. And yeah, I hope people who are listening to this and are curious can start that exploration. If you're listening to this and you think, oh my goodness, I think I'm in the addicted camp, then there's always coaching and other forms of help as well. But definitely no need to stay stuck.
Absolutely. So I'm curious to understand for the audiences that, it's much more beyond. Drinking is just a way around which you are talking much more about life and all. But who are these people who actually call you or, want to be your clients? Do they understand what you are trying to, the wider message around it, or do they only understand about the living alcohol part? Help us understand from the ground, who are this sort of type of, who are your clients generally? How do you help them? Because alcohol itself, making them leave alcohol itself is a big thing. Here you are going beyond. It's like rebuilding life, re-looking at life and trying to achieve something, much more larger, bigger, which which is much more tougher task.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. The majority of people who come to me are often, they say to me, and I know I'm drinking far too much, but I'm finding it really difficult to cut down, and I don't know if I want to quit. I don't know if I can quit. And there's a very broad spectrum in a way, from people who are quite clearly addicted and it's really impacting on their life. It's beginning to bring real pain and sometimes crisis into their life. I can work with people in that situation. They will not be thinking the bigger picture. They just want alcohol out. And a little bit like I was sort of 6 years ago, they're not really sure why it's come in. So the journey, they don't know how they got into that situation. So the journey we go on is very much about helping them quit, for sure. But part of that is about changing their beliefs around alcohol, working on their beliefs that it's actually helping them in any way, shape, or form. And the other part, the subtle and the beautiful part, is about helping rebuild confidence and trust that you have the agency to actually create the life that you want, the life you don't want to escape from. But obviously when people come to me early doors and they're on their knees, they're sort of in the grip of alcohol, they're not saying, Anna, can you take me on that journey? They're just saying, I need to do something about this. And my path with them opens up. Other people who I coach do come and say, I don't want to quit. I don't think it's actually a huge issue for me, but I do know that it's beginning to, impact on my life. And I think I've got a dependency that could get worse unless I tackle it. So it feels like a different end of the spectrum. But it's what's really interesting is the universal truth, wherever you are on your drinking, whether you're heavily addicted or it's just beginning to become apparent to you that it's might be becoming a problem. The truth is that we use it to cope. We use it to manage our emotions, which means that we're not listening to our emotions. We're not listening to what we need. So if we can pull that veil off and start listening to what it is we need, then we can find different solutions. Alcohol is just a really bad solution to underlying problems, to underlying needs. So the journey we kind of go on is the same, but the start point is obviously quite different. The book, when it comes out, is a much broader inquiry. It really starts off from the point of you don't have to have a problem. For me, and this is the absolute key, Ajay, I really believe this, all too often we stay stuck in drinking. We stick with drinking because we don't think our drinking is bad enough to do anything about it. But the book starts from the point of, is your life good enough? It's not about how bad your drinking is. It's, is your life good enough? Or could it even be better? You might be like, yeah, my life's great. It's like, but could it be better? So that starts off from a very different place than potentially the coaching often does. Does that answer your question? Sorry, did I go off?
No, not at all. In fact, I was listening to it very intently and was happy about the type of work you are doing. My job is to ask at this point in time, like you do on your podcast, but you as an individual, I obviously am happy when somebody, is motivated enough to do things which can benefit everyone. And that is where I want to understand about your motivation, Anna. How do you keep yourself motivated? You see the number of, all these alcohol shops and all these things, this is growing worldwide, and so does our Alcoholic Anonymous offices also. All, for so many years, they have been fighting. It's an established organization. They have their job to do. They can do a job. they have to motivate people, they have to motivate themselves. But in terms of you, how do you motivate yourself when you see that the whole industry is flourishing around this whole drinking thing, and more people are falling into it? It's like this was already there. Now the dopamine hit through the social media. It looks like, the system is trying to create issues for the people in the name of more openness, and then they say, I leave it to you whether whether for you to choose or not. And then people like you and a lot many others will come, and in bits and pieces will have to try and put this whole system together. It looks like to be a very different and difficult sort of a thing, system promoting evils, until one day many people will come together and say, we don't want all these things, and then you start disengaging. That is where the motivation. How do you look at this system of either alcoholism, about any other sort of addiction, and then look at people like yourself who are fighting and trying to get people to see and look for the right kind of thirst?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I mean, the alcohol industry is massive. The machines, the cogs, the wheels of that industry are, grinding away, and alcohol, my view on this is alcohol is not going anywhere. In particularly in Western society, is such an ingrained part of our culture that it's not going anywhere for the time being. If I thought about myself as, me and other people like me versus the alcohol industry, I think it would be quite demoralizing and quite demotivating. I don't think of it like that. I am, as I say, I'm not anti-alcohol, because that would be demoralizing and a bit thankless. I'm pro-happiness, which I think we all need a lot of in this world. I see alcohol causing a lot of unhappiness. I see alcohol blocking a lot of ambition. I see us not having the right tools in place because we default to alcohol in a world where we really need to be, resilient and strong and less anxious. So I'm very motivated by the fact that I simply think we need to personally take a kind of a stock, an audit, and accountability of our individual lives, and sort of say, am I happy? Is it good? Is it where I want to be? And I really believe in people's ability to take accountability and to change. Even the greatest addict wasn't always an addict. Change has happened before. We're born to evolve. We can change. And as far as things like Alcoholics Anonymous is concerned, I've got nothing but good to say about that organization. It's not for everybody, though. There's definitely that, and I personally wanted to make alcohol irrelevant as opposed to just avoid it. Just say, I can't go there. I must not go there. I must not drink. I wanted to understand. And that level of understanding has benefited me in every single part of my life. So again, the work that can be done to understand our drinking motivations will benefit people in every part of their life. I am incredibly motivated by, the response I get from people I work with, the collective response to the podcast, because I know it's making a difference. And that's what motivates me. It's probably what motivates you and many, many other people as well. It just has a real meaning for me. I think alcohol stops people playing big. Ajay, I think it makes our world smaller. If it's blocking ambition and it's blocking our motivation and it's stealing our energy and decimating our sleep and making us feel like we need it in some way, in shape or form, it makes us small, and that's robbing the world of the great stuff we can bring to it. If we got alcohol out the way and really started living the life we wanted. I'm very excited about that for people. I really am. They come to me thinking they're going to give up alcohol. And I'm like, the gateway the gateways actually to a much better, much more fulfilling life. And that motivates me enormously.
Absolutely. There is much to understand about all this from you. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you about you, what you are doing, and also about your book and your podcast. What's the best way for them to do this?
Well, the podcast is called The Big Drink Rethink. So the podcast is an easy one to find. It's on all podcast platforms. So The Big Drink Rethink. My website is currently called thebeliefscoach.com, The Beliefs Coach. But it's changing shortly to The Big Drink Rethink. So that's, but either of those URLs will find me. But yeah, and obviously if people want to buy the book, they can pre-order that on Amazon, and it'll drop on their doorsteps in January as a start of a new year, bit of a rethink. But yes, Google me as well, and you will find that various paths lead to me. I shouldn't be too hard to find.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining.
Thank you. It's been amazing. Thank you very much.